let's move on. I just want to give a little bit of background and context to the seminar. As we all know, cities are spaces where social, economic, and cultural interactions shape the daily lives of all our residents. But historically, I think it's fair to say that urban development and urban planning have often overlooked the really diverse needs and experiences of women and diverse and marginalized genders. And I think we see in many of our cities inequitable outcomes in terms of the access, particularly by women, but also other marginalized groups to resources, services, and opportunities. And that really was our starting point for this webinar and for work that CLGF and all of the partners involved in this meeting are focusing on currently. And I think we really particularly want to recognize that critical role that local governments play in fostering inclusive and gender responsive urban environments. And that's really what we're trying to do by giving both a political and a kind of technical perspective and insight into some of the strategies and some of the good practices around addressing gender disparities in city planning and city governance. And we're also going to try to look a bit more about the economics in terms of spatial inclusion and safety. So our objective is very much around sharing lessons and experiences from across a broad range of contexts, programs, and actors. And also to have an opportunity to learn from you as our participants and as our audience. And as with many of these things, it's the role of sort of urban planning doesn't just fall to one local actor. And in the same way, this workshop, this webinar is very much a consortium effort between, it's being hosted by the Commonwealth Women in Local Government Network, the Commonwealth Sustainable Cities Network, and I will say a little bit about both of those shortly, working in close collaboration with both Cities Alliance and the Commonwealth Association of Planners. And we're really delighted to see our members, but also our partners who we've been working with on this issue on the webinar. I think it's probably fair to say that, for us, we've been really trying to look at how we network specific parts of our group, our organization together to focus on some of these issues. And I mentioned two networks, the Commonwealth Women in Local Government Network and the Commonwealth Sustainable Cities Network. They're two groupings within our overall CLGF membership. So the Women in Local Government Network is in effect a network of networks of women leaders from across the Commonwealth. And we really try to focus on supporting women in leadership, supporting young women interested in engaging in political leadership at the local level. In looking at some of the ways in which we can use the CLGF network to address some of the systemic barriers around women's participation and women's engagement in local leadership, and then bringing CLGF's voice and the voice of our members into international dialogue around women in leadership. So we've worked a lot around SDG 5, but also in other global fora. So we're working currently with the Commonwealth towards the Women's Forum, which will be the Commonwealth Women's Forum happening at the end of this year. And at the same time, we also work with our city members, recognizing some of the particular challenges that local governments face in terms of urban development, urban management. Many of our members will know that we've been really trying to sort of leverage the power of the Commonwealth to focus more on sustainable urbanization. But specifically, our network looks at bringing our city members together to share and learn and direct our own policy around the relationship between city governments and other levels of government, around economic development in cities and urban spaces, around SDG 11, and then specifically around both technology, increasing use of digitalization, but also youth engagement, both as political leaders, but also as active citizens and users of services in cities. And this meeting is really an intersection between those two networks. looking at how we support more inclusive and accessible cities in line with SDG 11, and supporting women councillors and women citizens and leaders to bring issues of importance to their constituencies into council, and then move councils to prioritise and action change. So I think without wanting to sort of go into too much detail, I think the value of networks can't be underestimated. I think the value of bringing different actors and stakeholders together on a shared issue, such as sustainable urbanization, is incredibly rich for all of our organizations and for our partners. And I hope that we'll use this discussion today to really share our own experience, identify and discuss what some of those barriers are to more inclusive urban spaces, and to look at how we might be able to learn from you, learn from our speakers, to really reinforce our own advocacy towards gender parity at all levels of government across the Commonwealth. So without further ado, I think recognizing all of that context, all of that background, both the challenges, but also the real innovations that are happening in many of our cities to make cities much more inclusive for women and for marginalized groups, I think we should move on, and I will introduce the first of our speakers. So as I've said, we have three key speakers. I'm going to invite each of them to give their presentation. And then once we've heard from all three of our speakers, I'm going to open the floor for a Q&A and for engagement with you, our audience. So if you can throughout think about the questions you want to ask, make a notification maybe in the chat of your question, then we'll be ready to come to those as we get nearer to the Q&A section of our webinar. So let me introduce first our first speaker, and she is Jua Cilliers, and she is the president of the Commonwealth Association of Planners, CAP, one of CLGF's partners. And CAP as an organization brings together 30 national planning organizations from around the Commonwealth, representing almost 40,000 professional planners. So a very rich experience from which to draw on. And Jua is also the head of the School of Built Environment and a professor of urban planning at the University of Technology in Sydney. And she's also the former chair of the Women's Planning Network of CAP, and is serving on the leadership team of the Women in Planning for the International Society of City Planners. I don't think we could actually ask for a better opening speaker for our webinar. We know that she's absolutely committed to advancing gender equality and expanding opportunities across the professions. So Jua, I'm going to hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucy. It's wonderful to be here, and thank you to the Commonwealth Local Government Forum for this opportunity. So as Lucy said, I'm in Sydney. I posted a Sydney background for you all, but I also wanted to share that I'm originally from South Africa. So if you wonder why I don't have a good Aussie accent, because it's my best South African Aussie accent. But no, it's a privilege to be here. And I've been working in planning for the past 2 decades and across various forums, and gender and gendered cities is a big issue that we're still trying to get right from a planning perspective. So it's great to have these discussions and to have collaboration and networks to help us plan these cities. Today, I wonder if, can they see the slides or not yet? Can we put up the first slide? So today I'll discuss CAP, so the Commonwealth Association of Planners' efforts to advance women in planning. We've got a Women in Planning network, and they are doing tremendous work. But we've also tried to integrate some of these principles from the Women in Planning network into our new climate action policy. So I will briefly touch on that to show you what we are trying to do from CAP's perspective in terms of gender mainstreaming in urban planning. So I'll provide you with a high-level overview of what we are doing, and I'm very happy to share some more links and publications by our chairs in our Women in Planning network with you. Joyce, if you can click me through to slide 2, that would be great. So just in terms of who's the Commonwealth Association of Planners. So as Lucy mentioned, CAP comprised of 13 national planning organizations, and we represent 40,000 planners. Our members are really of all levels of government, so private sector, non-government, community-based organizations. And CAP really aims to advance planning globally. So our member institutions vary in size and in circumstances. So we've got countries like Canada that has really well-developed devolved planning frameworks, and we've got members like Bangladesh that are still in the process of developing national frameworks. And so from CAP's perspective, we try and really support these wide memberships. So we deal with a lot of different planning scenarios, but it's really interesting to put heads together to really brainstorm these different scenarios. For some of our members, the planning profession is really well understood and very valued. But also through our research with our partners in the Commonwealth Sustainable Cities Initiative, of which CLGF is also a member, we've been alerted to some bad information and bad statistics, especially about countries undergoing rapid urbanization that are really experiencing severe climate impacts, and which we all know disproportionately affect women and children. And it's mostly these countries that are often lacking professional planners and academic programs to train professionals. And so that is also a part where CAP is really dedicated to address some of these critical gaps and challenges. Next slide, please, Joyce. So the Commonwealth Association of Planners, we've got a lot of networks and partnerships that we draw on. So there you can see some of our CAP networks, which the Women in Planning Network is probably the most prominent one for this webinar. And through these networks, we engage with a global audience. So this is the Global Planners Network, the International Society of City Planners, or ISOCARP, the Habitat Professional Forum. We also work closely with the Commonwealth Association of Architects and the Commonwealth Engineers Council, and then, of course, also others outside of the Commonwealth. These networks are also a very valuable leadership development opportunity. And I might use myself as an example here, where I started as part of the Women in Planning Network of CAP, and later part of the Climate Action Working Group. And, as things evolve, I got elected as the president of CAP. So I think having organizations that put these networks in place are often a very valuable tool that we can use to, especially for women, help that leadership development and to progress into more senior positions. Next slide, please. So I wanted to touch on the impact of gender inequality in planning and design. And I mean, from an urban planning perspective, we are really aware of the need for gender-sensitive approaches in urban planning to create equitable, safe, and resilient cities for all. So here's just, 4 of the most prominent things: limited access to public amenities. So we know that women and marginalized groups often face inconsistent access to essential public resources like parks and transportation and sanitation. Another big issue is restricted mobility and access. So women's physical and social mobility constraints limit their access to jobs and to education. So it is just a whole economic impact on women. Gender-based violence is another big one. Women's vulnerability to violence in public spaces demands that we have urgent urban planning solutions to enhance our safety and our inclusivity in cities. And then obviously the climate change impacts. We see more and more research telling us that women disproportionately impacted by the burdens of climate change, and highlighting the need for integration into planning processes. So we know about the challenges. It's now to craft these context-based solutions to address some of these challenges. Next slide, please. I've included this slide to show you design matters. So this is just an illustration of if we design a bathroom with the same number of stalls, it's not necessarily giving us the same outcomes. So you can see the same amount of toilets would not have the same time outcome for women versus men. And I know everybody's very aware of this, that you stand in very long queues when you go into the female toilets. And so for the same thing, our cities cannot be designed for one cohort. We need to think wider in order to have better outcomes. If you just click at one time, Joyce, there's a quote that I just wanted to include there. It says, the ways cities are designed, built, run, and maintained affect women's learning, work, leisure, political, and cultural participation. They can foster community networks and shape how safe they feel in their daily lives. So it's about design, right? And we have to get this design right if we want to get gendered cities right. So next slide. So this was why design mattered. And then I wanted to put up why leadership matters. So as of September 2022, we only had 30 women serve as heads of state or government in 28 countries. And so at this rate, gender parity would only be reached in another 130 years. So we've got a big leadership issue to address in terms of women in leadership positions across the built environment and government sectors. So what CAP is trying to do in this regard is we created a Women in Planning manifesto through our Women in Planning network. And this manifesto was conceptualized through a diverse group of planners and built environment professionals across the Commonwealth. And we received comments of 10 different countries, from planners, from rural communities, from Aboriginal communities, civil society. So it was really well accepted amongst a wide range of stakeholders. And we also circulated this manifesto to all the vice presidents of the Commonwealth Association of Planners. So we had input from all our members, and eventually, after a very long process, the manifesto was signed and adopted in 2018 at our meeting that was held in Cape Town. So what does it mean? The manifesto is really a call for global action to governments and professionals, academics, individuals, and stakeholders to say we need to apply a gender-based lens through which we can examine this built environment and through which we can advance sustainable development goals. So it's to call on everybody that's in the planning process and in the government process to say, put on your gender-based lens whenever we think about policy or planning. Next slide, please. In essence, what the call is, or the manifesto is, it's a more extensive document than the 5 bullets that I've got on the slide here, but it's basically a call for gender-balanced workforces, so to attract and retain women in planning roles. We often see that we get a lot of female students into the planning profession, but for some reason we don't see the women progress into the leadership roles. The second thing we're calling for is capacity building and leadership, so to support and empower women in planning and built environment professions. The third thing is a recognition of gender inclusive planning, and hence why this webinar is perfect in what we are trying to do, because we're calling to ensure professionals and political leaders and decision makers acknowledge and implement inclusive practices. We're also calling for enhanced education and research, so to improve gender-focused planning education and the research surrounding that. We've tried from the university side to launch a scoping study about female voices in the built environment, and it was quite difficult to find female voices in the built environment, in meaning females that published in terms of the built environment and how they feel in the built environment. It's like we don't have enough of the case studies and the lived experiences coming through in our research at the moment. And then the fifth thing we are calling for is toolkits and resources. So tools that can incorporate gender-specific data and best practices, including legal protections and standards. So we need to be better at measuring and understanding what we need to be doing before we can action it. Just briefly, in terms of our climate action policy for CAP that we then developed, we tried to take some of these principles along in the climate action policy. So things like inclusive policy formulation was a big thing in our climate policy. Targeted adaptation and mitigation measures. We realized that it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, not even if you talk about climate. Different genders, different cultures, we have different approaches, and we need to recognize that target adaptation and mitigation measures. And then we also had a big call for capacity building and empowerment, again, as part of climate, but it's also calling on, that capacity and that leadership piece that we see in the gendered cities debate as well. Next slide, please. This is wrapping it up a bit, but this slide is really to show international equity, diversity, and inclusion of resources. So we draw on a lot of the work that's been done by other groups. We don't, CAP is not reinventing or thinking about gender from our own perspective. We are heavily relying on our colleagues and on our friends in industry to help us create our manifestos and our policies. And Lucy, you started off by saying the value of networks, and this is really true for us too. If we come together and we work together, we might be able to solve some of these problems, but it's really about, bringing these networks together, having shared knowledge groups, capacity building, co-development of policies. If you can give me one click, Joyce, I think I can't remember how many animations there was. Another one, please. Our Commonwealth's Women in Planning Network has a lot of resources on women in planning. And this paper was written by one of our co-chairs, Jenna Dutton. I'm happy to share that with you. But there's a lot of information. I often say, we all have our information in our own little silos and we share it with our networks. But what's so great about webinars like this and interaction with CLGF is that we get to share things and we get to understand similar problems or maybe different solutions to similar problems. And that is how we can take our professions forward. So I would be very happy to share with you more of these detailed documents and plans of our networks. And I'm happy to also loop in our co-chairs, Jenna Dutton and Heather Pinnock. And in the group chat, I can also share with you some of the publications. But in closing, last slide, please. I think the main message that we all agree on is gender parity is not just good for women, it's good for societies. And we need to have those female voices help us shape cities and shape the built environment in order to be good societies and good cities, good places to live. And that is really what CAP is trying to do through policies, through networks, through collaboration. We're advocating for good policy and good planning. So thank you very much, Lucy and the team. It's great to be here and look forward to answering more questions and look forward to hearing more ideas and insights from everybody joining us today, because that's the only way we get better at creating policies and plans. We hear from everybody. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Jua. And thanks for kind of reminding us that, planning goes way beyond, just what buildings look like. It really does get into the nuts and bolts of how we solve economic, social, and environmental challenges of the day and of the future as well. I think that's also really important in terms of planning. And we're really happy to have you on the webinar. And I think it's really important that we look at how we knit the work of different stakeholders and different actors in the city together so that we create, as you say, that society that's good for all and the city that's good for all of us. So thanks very much for kicking us off so positively. I'm going to come now to our next presenter. Her name is Neelam Dhanushe, and she represents an organization called Cities Alliance. She's a program management specialist at Cities Alliance, and she's currently working on a program on cities for women, inclusive and climate resilient urbanization in Nepal. She's got a lot of experience, more than 18 years of experience in the development sector. She's really an advocate and around supporting women's rights, children's rights, and advancing gender equity. And I think with Neelam's presentation, we're going to take it down a level, and we're really going to get into the nuts and bolts of cities and cities which are inclusive for all. So Neelam, over to you.
Thank you, Lucky, for my introduction. So, as Lucky introduced myself, I'm working with Cities Alliance in Nepal. So actually, I'm the only, we are just started working Nepal from Cities Alliance part, and particularly it is a project managed by UNOPS and funded by EU. There are other partner, UN Habitat and UN Habitat, Cities Alliance and UNOPS is implementing together, and it is called City for Women project. So I'm really grateful with the Commonwealth local government forum for providing me this opportunity. Actually, we have been working with local government since long time and trying to build how cities can be more inclusive, resilient, not only from the women's perspective, but women's from the different strata. In Nepal is being a hierarchical society. We have women from different class, caste, ethnicity, geographical location, ability, person with disabilities. So varieties of intersectionality that we have in Nepal. So through this project, we are trying to work on that. So it is a very new project. Just started in October, and we are very newborn baby, but we have experience working in this area in other project in UNOPS, and Cities Alliance has very good experience working in similar kind of project, not exactly the cities for women like public spaces, but women's participation, building leadership, capacity building of government is always been our areas expertise, and we have been doing that. So I'm really grateful to share our showcasing our work, what we have been doing here, and it is very nice to listen Jua for their great work. I hope connecting with Commonwealth countries and connecting our women, if possible, from municipal level. We have mayors, you have deputy mayors. That will be a very good networking opportunity for us also. So in my presentation, I will start with very few issues that Nepal has in terms of local government implementing for women-related program, and not only women-related is from social inclusion and other inclusion part, and then I'll discuss on our initiative. So I request Joya for next slide. So while talking about municipality, in Nepal, we have a three-tier government. At the local level, there are, we have 753 municipalities. Among them, 293 are municipal, which is called more urban area, where our project is focusing on. So in this, there are a lot of study has been done by various stakeholders, and in recently we are also doing some study. So what are the major issues that women face in cities are mostly the cities are not only Nepal, everywhere the globally we see that they are developed from the designed, implemented, maintained, operationalized from the man's perspective only. So it is very nicely embedded in the public-private dichotomy of role, because women are in a country like Nepal, women are very less seen in the public sector. Recently, they are started to work in the government office, in private sector. They're coming out. Otherwise, mostly they are inside their private sector, inside home. So public space are never think from the women's perspective, and from the women from the other group, as I mentioned, who are deprived group, who are from the marginalized group, who are living in rural area. No one think about them, and they never thought that women will come in the public space in the city, and they will be actively engaged in the market, in education, and so cities are mostly from that perspective in Nepal also, as you have said in other country. So beside that, we have a lot of government policy. We have federal level policy, provincial level policy, and a local level policy. but still the policy and plans are also ignored to bring the experiences of women in them. And mostly they are, they are developed by the policymaker. And who are the policymaker? Mostly they are, men. Even they are women from some, well-off family. They don't know mostly what are the real problems that women from the very, deprived community, marginalized community are facing. So this is the major policy gap in terms of in our country, not only at the local level, but at the federal level, we have same kind of problem. So, so other thing is like in case of emergency, there are climate change, there are other, urban area is growing a lot, and the growth disproportionately affect women and people from the vulnerable community. The people, those who have already money, those who are educated, those who are living in a nice area, they don't need to think about the climate hazards and other things. But those who are really in how to say, like hazardous climate hazardous area, those are mostly the slum people, women-headed household, the poor people. So they are really facing those sort of problem that is creating a big gap in our country. So beside that, there is a high violence against women and harassment has been also observed in the cities, in transportation, in public offices, in school, even in the cities. We saw there are a lot of violence. So recent police data, Nepal police every year, explores this data, and that data says that 98% survivor and victims are women. There are just 2% male, mostly they are kids. So we can, from this data, we can see how women are more, vulnerable in our cities. So beside that, there is other major problem or challenge that women face, though we have 40% women in local government. In number, for example, say in the descriptive representation, we are very good. We have a nice number of women from the Dalit, women from other group. But still, while there is times comes for meaningful participation, representation, involving them in leadership position, decision making, they are very, it is very less. So substantive representation is still need to go far. So it's like these are the major issues. Besides that, we have, there are a lot of good things are also there, but these are the major challenges. Based on that, the project Cities for Women has been developed. So next slide, please. So I'll not talk more about Cities for Women project. The project is, as I already said, is funded by European Union and Cities Alliance, and UN Habitat is partnering because we have different capacity. Cities Alliance is good in women's participation and making cities from the women's perspective. UNOPS is like designing, architecture are there. So UN Habitat is more on working at the federal level policies. So we have a different scope: policy, participation, infrastructure development, and knowledge management. So these are the 4 components. So next slide. So in our project, actually, based on the finding that we derived from the various study that has been done by other government, other organization, and our organization itself, our major area focus is we want to work very closely with the municipal government to develop inclusive project. The project is like we are working on open space project. As I already said, in Nepal, the public open spaces are mainly used by men, and they are designed, they are implemented by the man's perspective. So the major intent of our project is how those cities can be made inclusive to all, regardless of gender, caste, ethnicity, age, person with disability, and other people. So this is the main aim. For that, we want to do that with the leadership of women representative. As I already said, in Nepal, we have 40% women representative. Almost this number is similar in each municipality. But their meaningful participation has not been materialized because they are just there as a I don't like to use the number tokens, but still they are in similar condition, right? They are just there to count the number, but still meaningful participation not been done. So all this project, whatever we do, we want to do in the leadership of women representatives. So for that, what we're doing now is just we are designing projects that are open space projects. So they will be the project will be selected. It has been already selected. Recently, we have started participatory planning process. Government has a participatory planning process. At the in their document, it is well written, but while it comes implementation level, it has not been implemented properly. So we have been working with local government to select those projects with the participation of people. So for that, what we did is like we go to the community people, we ask them how their city looks like, what are their dream about their cities. So for that, we discuss with women, adolescents, girls, people from the different community, not only women, but we ensure that there is a participation, a group from every women from the different startup, people from the different age group has been included, so that their experience, their opinion has been counted in the planning process. So that is the main aim of that. And for that, we have a system of co-funding with the local government, and it is 30-50 ratio. Government have to fund for 30 to 50%, then Cities Alliance and our project contribute on that. So this is our project modality, and other modality, it is community-based approach. So from the selection to selection, implementation, designing, to the operation and evaluation, we include community. We go with the community. So this is the idea for our project. Next slide, please. I think I talked a lot about this, like the approach that we apply in Nepal has been already applied, implemented in other part of the cities through the Cities Alliance. It's like engagement and assessment is all about participation, participatory approach, through the assessing, the community themselves assess the situation of, how there's, what are the major challenges and issue. So they are the a person who find out their issues by themselves, who have various tools and techniques to dig out those problems. So in the leadership of ward level government, which is the local, which is the smallest unit of municipality. So ward level people go to the community with us, and they find out their problem and issues by themselves. Then based on that, they provide some solution, and we co-design the implementation, co-design the project, then we implement to the community. That's how we call this is like community-based approach. Yeah. Next slide. So what we recently did, these are some example how we did participatory gap assessment in the planning and decision-making process. These are some pictures. You can see how local government, here are representative from the local government, municipal people. There is in our country, we have a municipal governing body. In there are women, people from the Dalit community, and other marginalized group are there, and we try to ensure the local government participation. Those elected representatives who are from the marginalized group, they took lead in assessing their situation, finding out the solution from the community. So we through this process, we don't only want to find out the issue, but build the capacity of government so that it will be institutionalized in their system. So from the very beginning of the assessing, from the very beginning, it is like assessment phase, we involve government. So here is some example, like how the community has mapped their open spaces, which spaces are really they want to use, which are the mostly used by the women, which are very risky area, why they are risky, what kind of solution that we can do to resolve those problems, which are like more friendly for the adolescent girl, which are more friendly for the person with disability. Are they like inclusive? So those sort of things that community people discuss together, then they mark, they provide different color to the different issues, then they provide solution, then the project is finalized. This is the one example of participation. So next slide. So through the assessment that I talked about, we have very good information. So what we did, like in other project, what we used to do is like that information used to be with the project and the organization. They did that assessment. But this time, what we did is like we assess the situation with the government, and we have included all those information in the government website so that this can be updated. They can use that. By doing that, they have very good information about their cities, and they can update. They can continue uh, even after our project phase out. So that is our sustainability plan for them. So this is one example how. One of our municipality, which is nearby Kathmandu, it is Chandragiri, where we have supported that platform is still being updated. It is development phase. Once it is finalized, we will set that in the government platform. So next slide. This is protection of sexual abuse and harassment assessment, because while partnering with the government has also very good system on sexual how to protect their staff and their community, those whom they are working. There is a very good system, but still, as a part of our project, we want to recall them, like we want to discuss about the PSES assessment, PSES kind of thing. What are the mechanism? What is the existing status? What can they do? How the gender and social inclusion section in women in municipality can take lead for that. So this sort of discussion we did with the government people, and with the leadership of deputy mayor and we other assessment are there. Next slide. As I already said, the main aim of our project is how to make local government process participatory and inclusive in terms of annual planning and policy development process. That's why we go to the municipality, we discuss with the government people, that means the municipal representative and elected representative, including all other staff. So we discuss with them, and they have also very good policy. What are the challenges they have been facing? What are the good initiatives they are doing? By doing so, we bring all ward chairs and all people there, so they can discuss, share, learn from each other. So we also provide this this platform to them, and with some tools we have developed participatory planning tool, so that they can use those tools. For example, all women and people from local community, they don't read and write. For them, what sort of tool can we use to bring their voice into the planning and decision making process? So that is our idea of doing participatory planning process. Next slide. So through this project, finally, we want to achieve the review and analysis the existing gap in the gender. It has been already done, and still we are in the process of finalizing the platform and the report. And other is like a lot of participatory workshop we'll do while after selection of this project, we'll co-design with the community. We'll make the project where possible very inclusive, and give it hand over to the government, so that through our co-funding mechanism, it will be implemented in the field. So similarly, we are also supporting government municipal planning guideline. It is totally participatory, sensitive, gender inclusive guideline. Similarly, at the national level also, we are supporting the Ministry of Federal Affairs to develop some planning guideline. And there are lots of designing workshop are going together, and joint monitoring visit, knowledge sharing meeting. So whole idea of this project is one thing is directly supporting the government of local government through building their capacity and engaging themselves in each and every process of our project. And beside that, we have very good collaboration with the federal level universities and state level universities so that they can go to the municipality and exchange their knowledge. This is the whole idea of implementing our project. I think though we are at the very beginning phase, we are getting very good response from the government. Government is happy. They are collaborating with us, and they have also very huge experience in this area and providing opportunity to sharing, learning among each other is also building their capacity. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to discuss in Q&A session. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Neelam. And I think thanks for, highlighting how far we have to travel in terms of where we start, in terms of how spaces are perceived, and some of the steps that we need to take in terms of ensuring that those spaces are places for all of us to be able to live comfortably together. And I think a couple of things, just a couple of takeaways. One is, of course, that it's no one organization that's responsible for this, that you mentioned so much in your presentation, the importance of participation. And I think that is really critical. And I think also that focus on leadership and meaningful leadership, and women having the ability for their voices to be heard. So I think that really segues very nicely with our next speaker. And I'm going to now invite Mayor Chitangala to give us her presentation. She's the mayor of Lusaka in Zambia, and in that role, obviously oversees planning and decision making at the city level. So in many ways, we're hearing very much from the horse's mouth in terms of this presentation. I know she's very passionate about improving data collection and management for decision making, gender and social inclusion, and I hope that she's going to tell us a little bit about that. And she is also the chairperson of the Regional Executive Committee for ICLE Africa, and a vice chairperson for the Covenant of Mayors in Sub-Saharan Africa. So she started as a councillor, she's been the deputy mayor, and now she's in the role as mayor of Lusaka. And so Mayor Chitangala, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. And good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me on this webinar. And thank you for the other two presenters. It was very nice listening about the things that are being done in their cities. For me, actually, for us here, Lusaka is just a case study for the greater city of Lusaka. And just a bit of introduction of what we are doing as a city, and of course, existing policies that Lusaka has been incorporated in, and also what we are doing also on gender and social inclusive. May I have the next slide, please? Okay, so those are some of the things that will be presented, and that includes the programs and the policies that have advanced to strengthen the gender and social inclusiveness, and of course the role as a mayor, and just adding the voice in the planning and decision making after the introduction. So may I go to the introduction, please? Yeah, Lusaka is the capital city of Zambia, which is located in the southern part of Africa, with a population of just slightly over 3 million people. And 70% of the population are living in informal settlements with limited access to basic services such as water and sanitation. And obviously, there's been a lot of urbanization happening in the city. People moving from different districts, and also different districts, also nearby countries that are coming to the city for economic survival. So Lusaka is an economic hub and contributes about 80% of the country's GDP. And then also Lusaka City Council was established under the Local Government Act. আপনার হইতেছে গিয়ে একটা ওয়েবসাইট করা আছে যেখানে
Could I ask everybody please to just mute their microphones when they're not presenting, please? Please go ahead, Mayor Chitangala.
Okay, so Lusaka became a center of excellency in 2016, committing to mainstreaming gender and social inclusive in all its projects and program. So if you see the pictures there, it's just showing us about the Central Business District and also the peri-urban areas of the city. Next slide, please. Some of our existing policies, gender and social inclusive policy. The Lusaka City Council has a gender and social inclusive policy that was launched on the 13th of June in 2018. And I must say that as deputy mayor at that time, I was part of the process and I signed that policy. So Lusaka City Council is also mandated to provide quality municipal services to reach all residents in the city. And also the council realized that the importance of social inclusive and gender mainstreaming across its work, both institutionally and also in service delivery. So this was very important that we had a policy that was launched at that time. The purpose is to create positive working environment for the city, ensuring high quality services for all clients, regardless of gender, their sex, race, ethnicity, religion, age, education, socioeconomic status, and also a disability. So our socio-economic policy is very inclusive. And also the policy also emphasizes on the importance of accessibility, affordable services for all sections, including the marginalized groups. Next page, please. Yeah. So how Lusaka incorporated changes to mainstreaming gender and social inclusiveness. Institutionalization of gender and social inclusive of the policy. The Lusaka City Council is committed to gender equality and social inclusiveness, and also recognizes that the integration of gender and social inclusiveness in its day-to-day function is very crucial for the successful programs and activities. To achieve this, we had to do the following, to put the following things in place. For example, we do have gender champions. These include myself and the councillors. I think for me, from the time that I became councillor, I think it's been important that we include the males as well to become gender champions. And when you include the males, then you know that you'll be supported. And in the last few years that I've been working in the local authority, we do have male gender champions, and they really have been also part of driving gender mainstreaming and social inclusiveness. Gender and social inclusive technical working group, that is what we have. The Lusaka City Council has a gender and social inclusive champion in each department. So in each department, we should have somebody in that department who's championing gender issues. The role of this technical working group is to ensure gender and social inclusiveness and mainstreaming in all the programs and projects that are being done in all the respective departments. The council has also employed 20 members of staff, which is not a very good number, few, but these are differently abled people that are working in a different department. That is just to show that we're being inclusive. So they work with us, and I hope that in the near future we can increase that number. Also, the council staffing structure was male-dominated before, and the top management was mainly men. But from the last few years, at least now we have actually four directors and 3 men, because we have a total of 7 directors. So we even have more women than the male, so which is very good for us. And then also the staff retains data disaggregated. The staff retains never used to have sex disaggregated segregated data, but now that has changed. And we are also promoting gender responsive and social inclusive budget formulation and implementation as a council, building the necessary capacities among civic leaders, the ward WDCs, that are the ward development committees that work with us at local level, and also members of staff to ensure interventions and decision-making process targeting citizens. And we also take into consideration social inclusive and gender mainstreaming as we make these decisions. Next slide, please. What has Lusaka been doing and why gender and social inclusive is a priority? Participatory planning and decision-making using the human-based approach was done during the formulation of what we are calling a local area plan and integrated development plan. For this one, what we've done is all the things that we're doing as a local authority, we make sure that we go into the communities and make sure that this is a bottom-up approach where they actually tell us exactly what they want. And using that, we make sure that we don't leave out the women so that they make their contributions, the women and the youth, they make their contribution, and all these contributions are incorporated in the integration development plan and the local area plans as well. We also make sure that participatory budgeting process is also inclusive. Lusaka City Council gets inputs from all the wards. We have 38 wards in the city. And during these budgeting processes, we make sure that the needs of the community and the different social groups are taken care of. This is like we use the community-based approach where everybody is inclusive and they all participate in the budgetary process. And then also gender and social sensitization. We conduct sensitization activities during the 16 days of gender activism. That is one of the things that we go out there in the community and do a lot of sensitization so that people must just be aware that this is happening. This helps us to do a lot of sensitization on GBV, the gender-based violence that takes place in most of our communities. So we use this time for sensitization. And then also developing gender-responsive infrastructure when implementing infrastructure projects. So these are some of the things that we are doing. And also we are making sure that installation of solar streets to avoid GBV cases. Most of the time you find that in areas where it's not secure, that is where you find that we have a lot of a high number of GBV cases. So as a council, we make sure that we are also installing street lights, or those areas are our priorities when we are installing street lights. Then, of course, construction of walkways to reduce the number of road traffic accidents. Right now, the city doesn't have a policy for to make sure that we have cycling and pedestrian lanes, but we are making sure that when they're building the roads or when we have a chance, we make sure that we have safe walkways for women especially, so that we know that women are moving around with the children and they must be safe. And usually what happens is that there's a difference with when a woman is trying to cross the road and the man is trying to cross the road. Because where we have a lot of traffic, like in a city like Lusaka, a man can cross the road by running, but a woman will not run. So it's they'll try to run, or maybe they will have their baby on their back or holding a baby. So that is not safe for them. So we're trying to make sure that we have these walkways to reduce the number of traffic accidents. The gender and social inclusive policy also aims at promoting gender equality and social inclusion in the city, in the council, with top leadership, key staff and community members also. And then therefore the mayor and myself and councillors and senior management, we need to drive the implementation for this to succeed. Next slide, please. Thank you. Some of the programs and policies that have advanced to strengthen the gender and social inclusiveness, we have programs or projects such as slum upgrading, which we would be, we are supported by other stakeholders and central government, and we are hoping that in the next few years, will be supported so that we can upgrade most of these slums. Like I mentioned earlier on, 70% of the city is unplanned. So the program is aimed at improving the informal settlements in terms of housing, water and sanitation infrastructure, and making communities a good area. And then what we also have is early childhood development. We are trying to bring back and also incorporate early childhood development in our communities. We used to have this program many years ago, but it fell off. And most of the government institutions have been working in silos. So they have early childhood education and working, the Minister of Health, the Minister of Education, working with other partners like UNICEF, Save the Children. But as a local authority, we haven't been working with them. So we want it to come back, and we have started the process of reintroducing early childhood development in most of the projects that we're doing, and also just bringing back using our community halls around the constituencies in the district. The goal is to address developmental needs of children towards improvement in cognitive, social, and emotional development, school performance, learning, work capacity, productivity, and then also ensuring children in the city, regardless of their social background, have the best start in life to create a better future for themselves and the city. What has happened is we have the youths in the city that are really involved in bad vices like alcohol abuse, drug abuse. And we realize as a council that it's the problem, we are trying to treat the symptom and not the root cause. So this is the reason why we want to a reintroduction of early childhood development, so that we tackle these issues right at the beginning, realizing that we also need to train parents and other caregivers and people in the community about good parenting. The reason that we've had a breakdown and problems with the youths now is because there's been a gap whereby the 0 to 3 in our communities, they are really living in those communities, but not really being taken care of. Whereby the 4 to 5, 4, 5, and 6 can still go to preschool and learn something. But remember, the first 1,000 days of a child, that is when their brain is fully formed. So this is one of the projects that local authority and the mayor's office, we are really trying to spearhead it, and hoping that we'll get a lot of support from our central government. We also have projects like the 1990 targets. The local authority is a member of the Fast Track Cities. So using the ward development committees in our communities, and just local leadership, using the women in our communities, we identify women that need help, or even others, but mostly women that need help, or identify households where they think that they will need to be put on a project, which is a 1990 targets. And this is where to hope that we ensure that there will be 0 new HIV case infections. And also, we also have a project for the mother to child transmission that is happening in 15 wards. One of the other projects that we have is also construction of VIP toilets in peri-urban areas. The Lusaka City Council has partnered with the University of Zambia and the Poor People's Process to improve sanitation through the construction of ventilated toilets in compounds like George Compound, which is a very area where most of the vulnerable are living, and this technology does not pollute groundwater. In George Compound, that is where it's an epicenter for waterborne diseases like cholera. So we are also connecting households to sewer networks. And this is a project that we are in partnership with MCA, which is a Millennium Challenge, and they're currently in one of the peri-urban areas, which is Mutendere in the district. And then this will ensure us to shift from septic tanks to sewer networks, which does not pollute underground water. And we also have policies. For example, we have the National Decentralization Policy of 2023, which emphasizes on the need to use the bottom-up approach in planning and decision-making. So we usually use the bottom-up approach, and which we found that it's better for us as a local authority, because what we submit and work on are issues that they themselves, the people, want, and it's easy for them to embrace those decisions. So next page, please. Yes, one of my roles, a few roles for the mayor in adding women's voices in planning and decision making. That is, I need to identify gender champions who are the men and support who can support women. And I've found that this really works well when we have these gender champions who are men on board with us. We also ensure that all projects and programs that are being implemented by the local authority are gender and social inclusive. And also we mobilize and advocate for more women to stand for leadership positions, such as senior management, WDCs, which are the Ward Development Committee that work with us in the communities, and also the CDF committee. We have the Constituency Development Fund that provides or helps us, the fund that helps us with projects and also skills for boys and girls and also women and men, and that empowers them, and also loans and grants for the community. But of course, we make sure that women groups are also on the top list. And also to appoint women in decision-making positions, we encourage, my office encourages that community chairpersons at least must be women, so that they are also parts of making decisions and inputs. We also provide gender and social inclusive lenses to all decisions that are being made in committee meetings and full council. I always make sure that we are gender sensitive. So these are some of the things that the local authority in Lusaka are doing in empowering local government to empower women and just be inclusive in decision making. Thank you.
Mayor Chitangala, thank you so much for that. And thank you for, reminding us very much of the kind of practical manifestations of many of the points that Jua mentioned at the beginning, but also particularly how important throughout it is to really champion and mainstream gender, and that we have to consciously make sure that we're doing this and continue to shine a light on the importance of our cities and all parts of our city working for all of us. So thank you so much for that inspiring presentation. We are running slightly late. It's a little bit my fault because I've been kind of like not keeping us to time as much as perhaps I should have done. But what I would really like to do now is open up for some questions from you as our participants. While you're thinking about your question, and if you just want to raise your hand, and then I'll bring you in and you can ask your question yourself. But we have had one question from Nomusa Shembe from eThekwini municipality in Durban in South Africa. She's unfortunately having to leave, but she wanted to find out the role of urban planners in ensuring that they contribute towards crime prevention through environmental design, so that cities are designed with safety lenses as their critical elements that prevent women to enjoy cities and often limit their access to social development. And I wonder, Jua, whether you maybe want to say just a little bit about that.
Lucy, it's very dangerous to ask me to talk about this because green infrastructure is something that's very close to my heart, and crime prevention through environmental design obviously feeds very much into that. The bit that I can say is that urban planners should be 100% thinking about that in planning safe cities and in planning environmentally good cities. However, in all the work that we've been doing, we've been seeing it's very siloed. It's almost as if planners think, oh, the environmental part is for the environmental scientists, the urban ecologists. Planners are very much focused on the built environment. But it's not the way the world is working anymore. Environment is very much integrated into planning, and these strategies like crime prevention through environmental design should be at the forefront of how we design with nature to not only get that environmental benefits, but then also get the safety and the livability benefits that it brings with them. Again, a big educational / awareness creation need in order to get this implemented in industry and practice.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, Jua, for sort of summing that up and emphasizing the importance of that. And I think when we share the video, then I hope that our colleague from eThekwini will be able to kind of hear your response. And I'm sure it was of interest to others on the call. Is there anyone else who is on the call now who would like to ask another question, or of either of Jua or of our other speakers, Merchitangala or Neelam Dhanushe from the Cities Alliance project in Nepal? Does anyone want to come in? I hope, colleagues, that's because you've done such a great job of covering all of the questions that people had to ask. We did have a question earlier, and I might ask this generally, and you might want to all come in on this question. It was around networks. Oh no, hang on, I have one more. Sorry. Yeah, how can urban networks be structured to facilitate meaningful participation and representation of diverse gender perspectives in local governance and decision making? And what initiatives can be undertaken to empower women and LGBTQ+ individuals to become active agents of change within their communities and their neighborhoods? I may come to you, Merchitangala, on that. And then also, in what way can digital platforms and social media networks be harnessed to promote civic engagement, dialogue, and collaboration among individuals of different genders towards building more inclusive and equitable cities? And I'm going to ask each of our three speakers maybe to come in and respond on one of those questions. So maybe, Jua, if I start with you, and then I'll come to you, Merchitangala, and then to you, Neelam. Jua.
Thanks, Lucy. In terms of inclusive planning and engagement, the one thing that we've seen is we always revert to traditional ways of participation, like, having open forums or asking people to put their hands up and raise a comment or a question. And not everybody is comfortable doing that. What we've seen that work really well is to do creative participation methods. So that range from, having sticky notes where people could write something and paste it, or go draw something. At one stage, we had cameras and we said to people, capture something here that you like. And so, it's a different way of saying, tell me what you like or don't like, but not in words, in capturing it in a different way. And I think people's more open to almost providing their information when it's not a very public forum where you might feel embarrassed or, what would others think if I say this? So the more we provide creative opportunities for people to engage, I think the better real answers we are getting. And in a way, I'm tapping onto the social media one now, because in a way, people's more comfortable to reply to comments or things online where their identity is not 100% known. We do then also have, the risk of dealing with the stakeholder group and you're not 100% sure who it is. But in general, technology and COVID and hybrid working gave us a new way of engaging with communities and respecting privacy while we do it. And we should be exploring that, knowing that not all communities have access to technology, right? And so that's where those creative participation methods would also come into play. But the more flexible and the more easily you do it, sorry, Lucy, you muted, so I just went on. The more you have to make it easy for people to be part of the process. And, sometimes legislative processes are really hard to comment on or to it should be easy process for people to feel part of it and to have a voice.
Jua, thank you for that. I'm going to come next to you, Mayor Chitangala, the same question, whether you have a reflection from the Lusaka context, and particularly as a mayor in terms of reaching out in that broad way.
Yeah, there I am. Thank you. Thank you. First of all, Lucy, for us, like I mentioned, we have 70% unplanned settlement in the city. So for us to get to where we are supposed to be, I think this is the reason why we have to be really inclusive. And Lusaka City, like the team, and even when the 8 years I've been in the council, we've been encouraged that we need to always make sure that we go down to the local level and make sure that we understand what they want. And in the few years that I've been with the local authority, I have found that for us, when you give them space, we give them, like, for example, you have a town hall meeting, or you just go into communities using the ward development committees or the local leadership. They are more free to speak and identify. They're very vocal, actually, very vocal to identify the needs that they want. And especially now that the government has given us the Constituency Development Fund, which is quite a good amount of funds, and people feel that they are now more responsible for the projects that they want, for the development that they want in their communities. And going down to the local level and just asking them the projects that they want, especially where women are concerned. When you're living in a community, it's women, may not go to work, but it's women that know and identify where a bridge must be, where a borehole must be, and so on. And, the easiest route to take when the kids are going to school, the safest way. So when you give people a chance to identify this project, we found that they really accept and become responsible for these projects. They own them. So you give them the ownership of this. So I think for us, just being inclusive and making sure that we have these policies in place that are supportive, and of course encouraging more champions come on board, and so that we make sure that we provide the best that we can in service delivery has been good. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Chitangala. And just maybe following that up, we've had a subsequent question which has come in while you've been speaking. And that is whether all of the positive steps that you've been taking, are you noticing a difference in the communities that you're working with? Has it changed the relationship between those communities and the city council?
Yes. Yes, Lucy. Like I said, people now really know what they want. There's been a lot of sensitization, teaching people that it's important that they speak, and especially that we have this decentralization policy that is going to be put in place now. So people are now aware how important it is to listen to them. And also when we're implementing any of the services, they must be services that they want and they embrace. Before, when you just go and take a project, they'll never really take part. They'll never really take part. So I think in the last few years, where we've involved the communities and gotten feedback from them, and working with them, has made it easier, and it has improved the council, because now what we're doing is exactly what they want. The projects that are being done are exactly what they want. The schools that are being built are right in the areas where they know the community and the large group of people live. Before, you build a school and there are just few people there, so not all of them will access that. But then now the difference is that they'll tell you this is where we want the school, because this is where the population of the children and the youth are. Yes. So there's been a lot of improvement.
Thank you for that. And I'm going to come, Neelam, if you wanted to come in on that set of questions, just quickly.
Thank you, Lucy, for these concerns. So, in our experience, actually, working with the local government is all about how closely you are participating in their process. Only not that we are we know everything and government doesn't know. So if we have those sort of mentality, that will not, result, that will not take us anywhere. So it's all about government has already very good examples. It is just only thing is like how we can build a network among them. How do we create learning and sharing platform among them is very important. And beside that, what we observed is that work very well is like assessing the situation, identifying issue with the government people. If the local government takes initiation with the community people, they find out the issue, they work together with a variety of stakeholders like academia, lawyers, students, and a variety of people, and they find out the solution among them, and that builds the ownership of that solution. And when that is implemented properly, that really works. And beyond that, the other thing that really work in context of Nepal is working only with women leaders at the beginning. Just work with women leaders and discuss their issues, problem, because as I already said, Nepal is more patriarchal society. Sometimes women leaders, even they are in the leadership position, they may not feel comfortable talking about their issue, putting their voice strongly in front of male counterpart. So first we discuss with women only, then we also, as Chitangala said, we have also very good change maker from the men. Engaging men and boys is very important because gender is not only about women's issues. So they should also know that if women are not supported nicely, every person is going to be affected. So it's like working with men and boys. And beside that, we also have very good example from working with the media, because they are the person who bring the issues of the community to the public. So through the various engaging media, for that is that also work. And beside that, in our project, we have one component, knowledge management and networking, connecting local government in social media. We have actually in Nepal, Facebook is very popular among the government of Nepal. So we have a Facebook. We are trying to build. It's not built until now. We are discussing in discussion phase, but we will have a one common Facebook for all municipality where we are working on, so that they can discuss, share their ideas, and post their nice thing and some challenges. So that platform can be there. Then other thing what we are going to do is like there is a called Septipin kind of thing, is tag me app application from Word. It is a digital framework that we are going to establish at the local government, in where every population from that community can assess the situation. What are the major safety concerns in the city? Which cities are, which places are not safe? So what can be the solution? So it will be the participatory platform for the women, girls, including men and other people. So this kind of digital platform will also help local government to take some inclusive initiative. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you to all of our speakers. I think, unfortunately, we can't carry on. We need to kind of pull it to a close now. And I'm not going to try and summarize everything that everybody said, but I do think what has come out very, very strongly is that urban planning is a critical route to ensuring that our cities are inclusive and are livable places for all genders. So we know that dimension is absolutely critical. It's been great to hear some of the theory around that, but also from Neelam and Tagala and from Jua, to also hear some of the very practical steps that cities and local governments are taking, but also that are supported by governments as well through policy and legislation to really encourage a much more inclusive approach to the kinds of cities that we have in our communities and in our Commonwealth. This event was one in a series of two. So we did a similar meeting with colleagues from the Caribbean and the Pacific a couple of days ago. And some of the feedback and some of the issues that we discussed were very shared. Others were a little bit different, and we will be sharing a little bit of an analysis of that after the event. And I will just reinforce again, we'll be sending you the presentations from this meeting. So you will have some of those to refer to in your own work going forward. And then maybe just finally from our side, we're organising a meeting of the Commonwealth Women in Local Government Network in Sri Lanka in June of this year. So we hope to share and bring in some of the perspectives that you've shared with us very kindly on this webinar in that work, and look at how we continue to go forward supporting and practically enabling more gender equity and gender equality in cities and local governments around the Commonwealth. And as part of that exercise, we're trying to pull together a gender equality charter, which our members are focusing on, particularly in the first instance in South Asia. So many of you on this call have already been part of that. And as I bring the workshop or the webinar to a close, I'm just going to ask each of our speakers just to leave us with one thing that they really feel is the kind of like the core message that they'd like to leave from their perspective, or from one of the things that they might have heard on the webinar today. If you could just leave us with one thing that you consider a priority, what would that be? I'm going to come first to you, Jua.
Thanks, Lucy. Previously, one of my students said to me, never underestimate the power of a small change. And that has been a good motto for us. So it's a small change, starting small case studies. One person can really make a big change. So never underestimate the power of a small change.
Fantastic advice. Never underestimate the power of a small change. Mechitangala, just one key thought or recommendation that you want to leave with us today.
Thank you. For me, I think what is important is that we need to all be inclusive, and the power of be inclusive others can really show, because when you include the women, the vulnerable, the children, the youth, then you'll see that everybody will be on board with you. So the power of being inclusive.
Power of inclusion. Thank you so much, Mechitangala. And Neelam, just in conclusion, just one point you'd like to leave with us.
Yeah, I like to say that the inclusive and participative mindset itself is very good thing. If you have that sort of mindset that it is implemented and the action and it is visible, so have very positive and winning mindset. If we are by our mindset inclusive and participatory, then that can be reflected and materialized properly. So having positive and winning mindset is very important for change.
Fantastic. So a positive mindset to change. And I think collectively, everybody on this group, I hope that we're going to go forward with those 3 recommendations, think about how we integrate them into our efforts at various different levels to really ensure that our cities and our local communities are as inclusive and gender equal as they possibly can be. This is a really critical issue. This is one in a series of events and activities that we want to take forward. And we always really enjoy hearing from our members in terms of initiatives and things that you're working on. And we look forward to future activities going forward. Thank you so much for your time and for your active participation today. And thank you to all of our speakers for such wonderful presentations. As you've seen in the chat, everyone has really, really appreciated the thought and the care that you've put into those. So we really appreciate that. Thank you, everyone, and have a brilliant morning, evening, or afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for having us.
Totela Mkwai.
Oh, thank you.
That
was
thank
nice.
you so much for having us.